Hello there guys, RMP792 here. So, one of the things I've been asked to talk about is my wild random thoughts regarding the DC Extended Universe and what they need to do in relation to it. So my intention here is to talk a little bit about the overall direction, and then I'm going to dig into one specific film that I think would be sensible. And if people like this, I might talk about, future films that I think they should make. So overall specific direction. At this point, they need to give up on the shared universe for a bit, because Justice League didn't really work. The actual crossover elements have widely been regarded as the weakest aspects of their films. So at this point, strip it back to basics and just say, okay, we're doing individual superhero movies. They're theoretically in a shared universe, so if we want to bring one of them over into somebody else's film, we can, but we're not gonna, we're not doing any big Avengers style crossover stuff yet. Which, here's the thing, WB's probably not gonna, I don't know, because WB have never exactly been the best when it comes to making good decisions from a creative standpoint. Because again, they're always, they're a major, massive, ridiculous company, and they're always thinking about the bottom line. So they're always trend chasing to try and figure out what's going to make them the most money that week, as opposed to what's going to create the best long-term solution. That's one of the reasons that Disney's kind of kicking their ass at this, because Disney has always been quite good at looking at the longer term in that regard. So that's what things like Disney's acquisition of Star Wars was about. They knew they were going to take a massive loss in the short term, but they knew they were pretty much guaranteed to make a fair bit of money on the first film, and more importantly, it got them another long-running franchise they could keep using. So cut back on all the the crossover stuff and just focus on making good individual movies. I haven't seen Shazam yet. I'm planning on going to see it, but I don't think it's out yet. I think it's pretty close to coming out. All the reviews for that are stonkingly positive, and I'm really looking forward to going and seeing that. I'm hoping it'll be good. I haven't seen Aquaman yet because for whatever reason I just couldn't motivate myself to go to the cinema to see it. I don't know why. So I will go and see that when it I will see that when it comes on Sky or Blu-ray or something like that. Wonder Woman was really, really good. I've talked about Wonder Woman on this channel before. I really like that film. I'm looking forward to the sequel. Hopefully they can do something good there. But in terms of the overall direction, focus on just making good individual character movies, and if it makes sense for a certain character to turn up in a certain film, do it. But don't kind of make it the big primary focus. So again, don't do another Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice where it's all laid out in the title. Just have Superman just turn up because he's Superman. He saw somebody was in trouble and wanted to offer to help. And maybe have them work together or something like that. That you can do. Now, to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't been confirmed whether Henry Cavill is still in. We know Ben Affleck's definitely out. And as I've said previously, I don't think doing any more Batman at the moment is a good idea. But this is WB, so we're going to get more Batman. And kind of the same goes for Superman. I don't think it would be a good idea to reboot Superman again, either with whether with a new actor or just trying to do sort of Man of Steel 2 completely different direction. Don't get me wrong, if they do Man of Steel 2 completely different direction and it it actually feels like a Superman movie, I will be happy, because I maintain that the last bits of Justice League where Cavill is actually playing Superman, he's good there. He is actually a very good Superman. He's just not had the opportunity to demonstrate that at all in these films. Barring that little bit at the end. So I would like to see him given the chance, but as I said, I don't know if he's still considered to be in this franchise or not. Because again, the behind the scenes stuff is. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust my camera. There we go. So yes, because the behind the scenes stuff is all kinds of ridiculous and just God knows what's going on there. I guarantee you half the execs at Warner Brothers don't know what the hell's going on there because, yeah. So I think part of the problem that the DCEU has had up to this point has been that they've been fighting against icons. Because the advantage Marvel had is that nobody had really done Iron Man before. Nobody had really done Captain America before. Nobody had really done Thor before. There'd been other versions of the Hulk, and the Incredible Hulk is pretty much the weakest of the Phase 1 Marvel movies. With the possible exception of Iron Man 2, but its problems was that it was kind of treading water after Iron Man 1, waiting for the Avengers to happen. So they were able to come in and do the truly iconic versions of those characters because they weren't trying to replace anything that had come before. That's why Wonder Woman managed to do such a good job, because again, it wasn't really a reaction to any previous adaptation. The only previous version of Wonder Woman was the TV show, and I don't say this in a way that's meant to be mean, but TV shows often don't stick with us as well as films when it comes to from an adaptation standpoint. If that makes sense. So the original 40s cartoon Superman doesn't stick with people anywhere near as much as the Christopher Reeve live action version. And that's partially because a lot of the really early adaptations haven't survived. We know there was a black and white adaptation of Batman, for example, and to the best of my knowledge, we don't have complete copies of that. And again, that was made in like mid to late 30s, something like that. When Batman was just kind of kicking off. So we don't really have. We didn't really have an iconic version until what's his face? Tim Burton. I've been having one of those mornings. Until Tim Burton did his version. And while I maintain I have a lot of issues with that film, I do get why that version of Batman is kind of the one everybody remembers. And every iteration after that was in many ways a reaction to it. But again, that in the same way that the Tim Burton version was very much a reaction to the Adam West version, where they were going in with the whole, we're not going to be camp, we're not going to be doing the can't get rid of a bomb thing. We're going to be serious about this. And then the Dark Knight trilogy took that serious and ramped it up and made what was basically a mob crime family thriller, or a vigilante mob crime family thriller, just with Batman. And those films worked for what they were doing. But certainly with Superman, every iteration of Superman since the Christopher Reeve version has in some way been a reaction to him. And there's a reason why the thing we still associate most with Superman, or at least I do in my head, is yeah, it's John Williams' Superman score from that film. And Superman Returns got pilloried for being too much like it. Man of Steel was too far trying to step away from it, and it's a nasty tightrope to walk. So for the moment, I would be moving away from Batman and Superman, and I would be going in a completely different direction. I would deliberately start to pick out less well-known but still important players within the DC universe to give them some big movies, and keep Batman, Superman, I would say the trio, but honestly, because we've still got Gal Gadot being the iconic version of Wonder Woman for the first on film established version, and the film was really good. Keep her around and keep her doing her solo movies and all that stuff. But yeah, for the moment, stop trying to do anything with Superman or Batman beyond tangential references, I think is probably the best thing. And focus on some of the less well known to Joe Public heroes, but who comic book nerds would get excited about seeing. Again, yeah, we're pinching this from Marvel, but it's working for them and we're getting good movies out of it. So the question is, who do you start with? They're doing Shazam, and Shazam I think is actually a really good choice for this, because Shazam deliberately was designed to appeal to kids. And here's the thing, all superheroes are stories for children. I'm going to let some of you be annoyed about that, but no, here's the thing. They're from comic books. They were written with children in mind. That doesn't mean you can't have good family entertainment that covers both. Let's face it, Pixar films are appropriate for children, and then when you rewatch them later in life, you realise, oh, I didn't spot that symbolism when I was younger. Same exact thing here. You can be family friendly without being childish, if that makes sense. And that's what I think Shazam, based on all the reviews and based on what I've seen, is aiming to do, and I think it'll probably work for it. The other thing is, don't focus your films on being one specific genre. Don't think, oh, we're making a superhero movie, so it's got to be this. Again, pinching from the Marvel playbook, most of the Marvel films fall into different genres and different categories. Winter Soldier is a spy movie, Ant-Man is a heist movie, and all this. They break up into different categories, and as a general rule of thumb, the ones that are just trying to be the superhero movie are the weaker ones. Iron Man 2 is just trying to be a superhero movie, and as a result, it's not one of the better ones. So you have to basically accept that you can tell fundamentally any genre story using superheroes. And my first pick, I'm doing this one simply because I think it's the easiest, the most straightforward, no screwing around, and I know a reasonable amount about the character, or characters, would be Green Lanterns. So Green Lantern, we've had a film before. It wasn't great. Part of the reason for that, I maintain, is that A, the direction wasn't very interesting, B, it was too short, and C, Ryan Reynolds was just wrong for Hal Jordan. Because Hal Jordan is the old school, conservative, square-jawed hero. Ryan Reynolds was a bit too goofy to play that in a lot of ways. Hal Jordan can be funny, but it's not Ryan Reynolds' style of humour, if that makes sense. He's a bit of a old school square-jawed tough guy hero. If they'd made it back in the day, you could have cast John Wayne as Hal Jordan, and that would have been bang on the money casting wise. As to who play him today, I don't know. But again, you move away from that. You ignore it canon wise. You move away in a way that doesn't completely remove it from canon. You just don't bring it up, you don't mention it. Because here's the thing, the Green Lanterns don't need an origin story. You don't really need to establish the idea of space cops too much. Because again, what the Green Lantern film should be is a cop movie. Specifically, it should be a buddy cop movie. And what you basically want to make is Training Day. Is it Training Day? I'm sure there's a fairly famous film about, well, to be honest, what you're making is Dredd from my point of view. Namely, experienced police officer. In this case, I'm thinking probably Jon Stewart. He's been a Green Lantern for a while. We can have a little bit of flashback to his backstory and how he got the ring. But, at this point, Jon Stewart has been a Green Lantern for several years. So he's considered not necessarily I was going to say green, but you know what I mean. Not necessarily, a raw rookie recruit, but he is, but at the same time, he's not, high up the grand pecking order. He's a solid workaday police officer to all intents and purposes, doing his job, flying around the universe, helping people, doing all the things a Green Lantern is supposed to do. And we can establish that, fairly early on by having, some sort of sequence where there's some sort of alien crime going on. Alien bank heist. You could have fun with an alien bank heist. And hell, if it was me, I'd poke fun at the Marvel guys by having the bank robbers be kind of a riff on the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's just because I'm a dick, and I think that would be quite funny. But yeah, so you have him break up some sort of bank robbery, and that lets you show off the powers of the ring. You can get, and again, the only limit on the power ring is imagination. And if you're not aware, I'll quickly run down Green Lantern's thing. Green Lantern is given a power ring. He is one of, is it 3,600? Yeah. There are 3,600 power rings, and each person with a Green Lantern ring is responsible for patrolling a sector of space. In the comics, they describe it as a section of the universe. I'd probably tone that down to a section of the galaxy, personally, because while that might sound less epic, that also significantly reduces the area that each Green Lantern is responsible for. Given how many galaxies there are out there, if the universe was actually split into 3,600 sectors, each Green Lantern's patrol area would be so massive that they'd be basically useless. Yeah, the rings are powered by the force of will, because in the DC universe there are 7. Each color of the light spectrum corresponds to an emotion. So red is rage, orange is avarice, yellow is fear, green is willpower, which is effectively neutral. Blue is hope, indigo is compassion, and violet is love. And no, I didn't miss one there. And you'll notice that you basically start at the bottom with the most extreme emotion, which is rage, but it's the most extreme negative emotion, effectively. Then you get closer and closer to the middle, and at the dead end you've got will, which is effectively emotionally neutral, and then you go the other way, and you get to more solid emotion at the far end, that being love. So what I would basically do is, and the rings allow the wielders to create hard light constructs. So you imagine a thing, and that thing comes out of the ring and becomes temporarily solid, and it's forged out of solid green light in the case of the Green Lanterns. It's forged out of solid red light in the case of the Red Lanterns, and so on. So for example, you need to punch a guy in the face. You bring your fist around to the ring, project a giant boxing glove around your hand to slug him one, that sort of thing. Or you can turn it into swords or all sorts of other stuff. You can get really creative and really fun with the Green Lantern power set in a way that the Ryan Reynolds film just didn't. That they had the opportunity to do all sorts of amazing things in that movie, and what they actually used the ring for was kind of boring. Lots of nets, and the most imaginative one was when he caught the helicopter using what was effectively a Hot Wheels track. That was the most imaginative thing they did with the ring in that movie, and that was still fairly weak. So we established that John Stewart has been a Green Lantern for a while, and he goes back to Oa to get his latest assignment. And if you want to play with the classic cop movie archetypes, you can have one of the Guardians, or the leaders of the Green Lantern Corps. This bunch of blue aliens have been around since the dawn of time, called the Guardians. They're assholes. They're also idiots. But you can have one of them effectively be in charge and be a bit of a dick to him. In the kind of, you're a loose cannon. Actually, no, to be fair, that's the problem. John Stewart isn't a loose cannon at all. He's a former Marine. He takes what he does very, very seriously, and that's fine. If you wanted to do the whole, you're a loose cannon thing, you could maybe do this with Kyle Rayner. Again, there have been enough humans who've worn the Green Lantern ring that you do have a lot of genuinely good options regarding where to go with this. The reason I want to pick Jon Stewart is that I really adore the Justice League cartoon, and I would love to see a live action Jon Stewart. But Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner. Okay, don't do Guy Gardner because guy's a dickhead. But anyway, but yeah, you've got options. But they basically they tell him that something odd has happened all the way back on his home planet of Earth, and a second Lantern Core ring has been given to a human. And this is where we bring in Jessica Cruz. Now, Jessica Cruz is a relatively new player in the DC universe. She hasn't been around for that long. So some people would probably be annoyed at her getting a big screen adaptation this soon, relatively speaking, when a lot of old, venerable characters haven't yet. But again, I'm fundamentally thinking of this film as very similar to Dredd, in that this is the older, more experienced police officer teaching the younger raw recruit who has a lot of potential but a lot to learn. So they basically say, okay, well, you're from the same planet. You're probably the best person to teach her how to make full use of the Lantern Core ring. She's been through basic training, but she's very rough around the edges. She needs a bit of honing in the field. So you're going to take her out in the field. You're going to fly around the galaxy. You're going to do some stuff, and that's fundamentally where it comes from. It's the bonding of these two characters over the course of some sort of adventure. And I'm not going to bother saying which villain it should be, or which or what the grand universal threat is, because ultimately that's not really important. A lot of the time we have a bad habit of getting hung up on the plot and forgetting the story. If that makes sense, because the story is these two characters bonding as mentor mentee, as friends, and eventually Jessica becoming a worthy partner to the older, more experienced Lantern. And that, I think, could be a really interesting relationship to explore. And again, you make sure they've got very different styles, because buddy cop movies work best when the characters and the personalities bounce off each other well. Which is part of the reason that I think Jon Stewart will work quite well, because he's very by the book. And Jessica Cruz is a little more young and wild and impetuous, and leap before you look kind of stuff, which I think could be very interesting to see. And just have fun with it. You're doing a big grand space operatic, and here's the thing: you keep it off Earth for pretty much the entire movie. Barring the flashback sequences where you establish how the hell Jessica got her ring, and maybe even how Jon Stewart got his. Maybe just they have a conversation that's basically, so what, how'd you get it? What happened? What showed the ring that you were worthy? Something like that, and they exchange backstories. But other than that, keep the film entirely in space all the way, because the DC universe is vast and ridiculous and awesome, and you can have fun with it. And again, the villain of the first film isn't really important in that regard, because what's important is those two characters meshing. But you do establish certain things. For example, you specifically establish that the Green Lanterns are currently unaware that there are other ring colors out there. Nobody knows that yellow light can be harnessed by power rings. Nobody knows that red light can be harnessed by power rings, so on and so forth. And that lets you set up, you set up the ground rules that nobody knows this stuff. So comic book fans will know where that's going. Regular audience members won't. So it becomes a big surprise later on when one of the villains is suddenly wielding a yellow power ring, and it's not Sinestro. I don't mind which member of the Yellow Lantern Corps it is, but it shouldn't be Sinestro, because he's the big bad for the second film. But yeah, and these two have to work together to overcome the wielder of this yellow ring, who's been, terrorizing a planet or something like that. Again, the yellow rings draw their power from fear, so, this is the point where your film is allowed to get a bit dark. Up until this point, it's been, very much a fun space adventure romp. But this particular sequence where they're you go just that little bit horror movie. Not too much, not too excessive, but just a bit. Everything gets a bit creepy, or heck, maybe this is where you get the flashback to how Jessica got her power ring. Because part of her backstory is basically that she was influenced by a ring from from an antimatter universe that was trying to drive her insane with fear, but she managed to break free of that and overcome it, and that's how she became a Green Lantern. So you get back to that, and that comes full circle, and you have the standing up in the face of overwhelming evil moment, and by working together, they're able to defeat this Yellow Lantern. And right at the end, in a similar manner to the Thanos tease at the end of the first Avengers, we see somebody go up to. Throughout the film, we need to be seeing Oa and its big power and the giant power battery, because right at the end of the film, we need to see somebody walk up to a giant ass power battery, hold up their hand with a yellow ring on it, and quote the Yellow Lantern Corps oath at it. And that is obviously Sinestro, and that's just here's shameless teasing for the sequel. Again, do that as a post-credit scene. Do that as after the people who don't really care have left. But and that is your shameless tease. But fundamentally, that's what I would do. Very broad overstrokes for the Green Lantern movie. As I would basically make it a buddy cop movie. You'd need to get two actors with really good chemistry, but it shouldn't be that hard. You pick your Jon Stewart and you screen test the bejesus out of everybody. And again, for Jon Stewart, you're probably looking at someone in their mid to late 30s. For Jessica Cruz, you're looking at early to mid 20s. That's what I would say. Because again, Jon Stewart's meant to have been a Marine prior to his recruitment into the Green Lantern Corps, and Jessica Cruz is effectively a young kid, not quite straight out of school, but that still young, still inexperienced, and bit of a hothead and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of character dynamic at play there. There's tease for the sequel, and sequel is where you actually go full on, Lantern Corps war between the Green Lanterns and the Yellow Lanterns. And that lets you bring a lot of the side characters who are in the first one but weren't major players. So Tom Array, Kilowog, Ganthert, all these other important things to the fore. And in particular, you establish, is it Ganthert? I think it's Ganthert. Is one of the few members of the Guardians who isn't a total moron. So when they start hearing rumors about other things being used to harness in harness rings, Ganthert starts experimenting, and at the end, and he's considered the Maverick wildcard. So throughout the second film, he's kind of experimenting, trying to build something new, and during the second film, you also establish the character of Saint Walker, and as just some alien, who's quite helpful. Well, he's hanging around. He's not doing much. He seems almost like the comic relief. And it's kind of half comic relief, half kind of wise spiritual person who keeps saying, well, we need to have hope in the face of hope in the face of fear. And eventually, the grand finale of the second film is basically when Ganthert creates the first blue ring, the first ring of hope, and gives it to. Either he gives it to Saint Walker, or Saint Walker in some way earns it, or just the ring does what the rings do, and it finds a worthy host for itself. And the three of them together are able to stand against the might of the Sinestro Corps and beat them back. But again, and then there's teasers and implications for a third film, which is going to be about the full war of the cause, where there are all 7 of them in play. And that one would have to be a big, massive, grand epic. And again, you could have a lot of fun with that. Two lanterns from opposite corps fighting off against each other, trying to counter each other with all sorts of ridiculous construct weapons, is a great idea for a fight sequence. 100 lanterns from different corps all piling in. Now that is an action sequence I want to see. That could be amazing. At least partially because your orders to the special effects team should be go nuts. If you think it would look cool, put it in there as a background detail. Yo, have fun with it. And eventually that tease, and I know people who are fans of the Green Lantern will be saying, well, why would you do the Lantern Corps War as the third film? Why wouldn't you do Blackest Night? Because Blackest Night is a massive universe-wide crossover event. Which, again, hopefully by this point they'd be ready to actually do major universe crossover events. Because, I mean, this is at least, 6-7 years worth of films I've just outlined just for Green Lantern. If you assume roughly two and a bit years between each film. So, yeah, that's how I would do it. You do Green Lantern as effectively a buddy cop movie between, probably I want to say Jon Stewart, but you could theoretically use any of the Green Lanterns, but I would strongly recommend making the younger, more inexperienced Green Lantern be Jessica Cruz, purely because that gives you a good, solid working dynamic. If you're using Hal Jordan, maybe he's got a bit of old school sexism, and he's not he's not opposed to women in any way. He's just got that old chauvinistic, women should be protected and kept out of harm's way thing going for him. And he doesn't do it from a place of malice, but he has to learn to let her stand alongside him as an equal, rather than be women and children first, need to be protected and all that stuff. So potentially there are all sorts of directions you could take this in, and that's like 30 minutes of waffling on this particular subject. The next one of these, I'm going to talk about another DC character that I think could work really well in their own film adaptation, and that will be Zatanna. So that will be the next one. And thank you very much for watching. If you've got any suggestions for a particular hero you'd like me to spitball on, or who you would like specifically to hear my thoughts on, please, comment section is there. And if you enjoy this, like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one of these.